watch the video.
I've been talking since early this morning. It's one of those days that was full of interviews on all sorts of topics, ranging from literal threats to human survival, which are quite real, to catastrophes all over the world, some known, Iraq, some not known, unfortunately, like Western Sahara, the last literal colony in Africa. All of these are kind of tainted by the realization that we share a lot of responsibility for misery and suffering and possible disaster, often by action, sometimes by inaction. With that, and I've just come back from South America, where there are also many vivid, very vivid memories, some of them inspiring, some of them pretty grim. With that world in front of us, it feels to me, and may seem to you, a little bit cold and bloodless to do what I'm now going to do, that is ignore the torment and misery and threats to survival and so on, and instead talk about problems of democracy and development in a rather general way. And I think the implications for day-to-day life are actually quite direct. In particular, implications for the very significant work that has been done for decades. I just learned 33 years by City Life Vida Urbana. That's quite a record. So I'll say a couple of words about democracy and development, in particular the obstacles they face. Among them, conventional ideology. So just to illustrate with one example, I'm sure you all read the many commentaries on the death of Milton Friedman a couple of weeks ago. The typical one was a front page story in the Wall Street Journal, full of accolades. Among them that the intellectual foundations of the Regan Revolution were provided by Friedman's work. That means reliance on market forces, on fiscal conservatism, all of which led to a grand economy that we've been enjoying for the last 30 years, 25 years. Well, that's pretty standard, and there's only one problem with it, and that is it's the exact opposite of the truth in every respect. Not an unusual problem. As for the grand economy, the last 30 years have been probably the major economic failure in American history, the so-called neoliberal period. There have been no serious depressions, no other major disruptions, but for the majority of the population, the majority of the population has actually seen real wages and incomes stagnate or even decline. One stunning figure is that the bottom 40% of the population has seen a decline in their net worth, what they have minus debt greater than what they have. There has been economic growth through this period. There has been increase in productivity, but the benefits have gone to very few. You may have seen a couple of front page articles in the New York Times this past week on how the suffering of the ultra-rich because they're so envious of the super ultra-rich, which is surely the great problem of the day, for some at least, not telling anything that you don't know probably in your own lives. If you go back 30 years, this actually started in the late Carter years. If you go back 30 years, beginning of the so-called neoliberal period, in the United States, wages were the highest in the industrial world, and working hours were the least. Exactly what you'd expect in the richest country in the world with incomparable advantages. By now, it's reversed. real wages are about the lowest in the industrial world. Working hours are the highest, close to it. Benefits, which were never very strong, have declined. Debt has soared. Security has declined severely. All of that, incidentally, is planned. The economic supervisor of the miracle, Alan Greenspan, when he testified to Congress about the wonders of the economy that he was organizing and running, pointed out very frankly that one of the major reasons for the health of the economy was what he called growing worker insecurity. All of what happened is not some kind of accident or, from outer space. It was planned, it's organized. So, for example, apparently during the Reagan years alone, it seems that about $700 million were spent on trying to encourage corporations to shift from the United States just to the Caribbean, that one phase of it. That was discovered in a great sting operation by Charlie Kernahan and the National Labor Committee that he runs. You may have seen it. It hit national television, where he actually was able to pretended to set up a fake company and was able to catch U.S. aid officials explaining how beneficial it would be to this fake company to shift their operations from wherever they invented, Ohio or something, to the Caribbean. You get very cheap labor, easily exploited, no benefits, mostly women, so you can control them easily, kick them out if they make a fuss, or get pregnant or something like that. No environmental constraints, things you all know about. Also, the Reagan administration pioneered openly illegal labor practices. That was well reported in Business Week. Pointed out that during the Reagan administration had instructed the business world that they were simply not going to enforce the laws. That was picked up by Clinton, who had another way of doing it called NAFTA. One of the predicted effects of NAFTA, and in fact realized, was to undermine union organizing. It gives employers a way to threaten the workers who are trying to organize a plant that if they continue, shift it to Mexico or somewhere else. It's illegal, but when you have a criminal state, it doesn't matter. And when the business world knows that it enjoys the benefits of a criminal state, it can carry these activities out. A lot of this work, as you probably know, was done by Kate Bronfenbrenner, Cornell, who done a number of monographs on it, and it's quite significant. Harms working people, also harms democracy. Unions not only improve the lives of working people, but they're a very powerful democratizing force. What about the miracle of the market under Reaganism? Well, that's a standard line too, overlooking the fact that Reagan was the most protectionist president in post-war American history. In fact, he practically doubled protective barriers, more than all post-war presidents combined. There was a reason for that. If you go back to, say, around the late 70s, there was a great deal of concern in the business world that U.S. Companies could not compete with superior Japanese manufacturers. U.S. managers hadn't understood the new techniques of lean production, on-time production, and so on that had been developed mainly in Japan, and the U.S. Industry was falling apart. And there were calls in the business press to